Before we get started on this segment, just want to remind you that every weekday at 1 o'clock and weekends as close to 1 o'clock as possible, we air our Sports Center style daily report with high school, college, and professional sports news from Central Indiana with some national sports news, anything that may be of interest to Central Indiana sports fans. 1 o'clock p.m. every day. You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode number 219.2, our boys basketball state final scoreboard show with Grant Shouse. Grant spent the entire day at the Fieldhouse in Indianapolis Saturday and has a report from all 4 games.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Menkels.
Grant had a long day at the Fieldhouse in beautiful downtown Indianapolis. What a day. Before we go game through game, Grant, tell me about the atmosphere and what kind of day it was.
Yeah, I've been, I'd say a handful of Pacers games throughout my life, and tonight was the loudest I've ever heard that arena. That place roared. There were so many plays where, especially in the 4A game, where you thought the roof was gonna blow off. I mean, the atmosphere was incredible for every game. It wasn't just one game; it was all 4 games. Honestly, I thought the weakest atmosphere was the 2A game, and it was still not bad. Talking about the crowd, the atmosphere, especially for the 4A game, was really good because it wasn't that there was just a bunch of Fishers and Jeffersonville fans. It was just basketball fans.
Right, and they
I
got
mean,
their money's worth, didn't they?
they did. Like, if you went to all 4 games on Saturday, you spent your money well. I read a stat that since class basketball was formed, it was the closest point totals. I'll
The
pause here.
lowest margin of the 4 games combined.
Yes, ever. This is ever in class basketball. Today's
Right.
4 state championships were decided by just a total of 19 points. That's the fewest points difference since the change to multiple class format in 1998. The previous mark was 22 points set in 2001.
Wow.
That's incredible. And every game was good. Every single game was good. There was not one. Usually you'll get games or days where, like, even for girls, where like 3 games were good. Like 3 of the games were good and one of them's a blowout. Or,
Right.
2 of the games are good and the other 2 are blowouts. No, every single game, it was a
You
one possession game with under 2 minutes, minute and a half, minute to go. The game
you
was
were on the
close.
edge of your seat 6 or 7 hours today. Basically.
Yeah, it honestly was maybe the most intense day of basketball I think I've ever seen, especially the 2A game. The 2A game
Such
was
high
really,
stakes.
yeah.
Such.
I mean, that
All
one
right.
was more personal, I think, for me though. So
But let's start with the Class A game, and Orleans won its first state championship in program history. By the way, that doesn't say everything about Orleans program history. It is especially over the last 25 years, been an incredible program under Tom Bradley. They outscored Clinton Prairie down the stretch, forced a lot of turnovers, and came away with a 64-55 win over Clinton Prairie. First state finals for both teams in program history. And the trio of Alex DeWitt, Bryce Jones, and Rylan Crocker was just too much for the Gophers.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Alex DeWitt impressed me. It's been such a long day. I really forgot about these guys for Orleans.
Right.
DeWitt played almost every single minute. He played 31 minutes and 39 seconds, 10 for 14 from the floor, 24 points, grabbed 7 rebounds, and he was an animal. He played a really good game. Rylan Crocker for them played all 32 minutes, scored 16 points. hit three big 3-pointers. It actually wasn't a 7-point game. It was a 9-point game. That was a 9-point. I don't know
Mm,
why I was thinking seven. It was a nine
right.
point game. The 9-point game, yeah, that was the blowout of
It
this,
really was, yeah.
but it was a close game in the fourth quarter. It
Right.
really was. It was coming down in the last few minutes, and Orleans hit some free throws down the stretch to extend the lead. And I was happy they won for their coach, Tom Bradley. And I know you've covered in that area. That guy's paid his dues, but I mean he's
Yes.
absolutely paid his dues because he's been there for a long time. And you get stuck in a sectional with Bar Reeve and Lagodi and North Davies and
Yeah.
just the juggernaut schools, and you're just not poised to get out of that and win. So I was really happy for him. Talking about Clinton Prairie though, Jake McGraw, who I thought started off really slow for them, got going. He scored 23
Right.
points. And he was dominant when he got going, and he single-handedly got Clinton Prairie back in the game, but it just was, too little too late.
The 2A game, of course, was the one that was nearest and dearest to your heart. Manchester came away with a 59-54 win. Like Orleans, the first state championship in program history. I said it a couple times this week, but Coach Renbarger told me before the season he thought that they were the favorites to win the state championship, and man, he nailed it. And 59-54 again was the final. As expected, Ethan Hendricks and Gavin Benton were the heroes, 21 points apiece, and man, were they really good. Manchester, like you said, tied at halftime, pulled away in the third quarter, and
Well,
celebration in North Manchester tonight.
Well, they pulled away with 30 seconds to go.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
true too, yes.
it was a 1-point game with a minute to go, Greg, and you're stressing like you're losing your mind almost. Their largest lead at one time was eight with 13 seconds to go in the game, and it was 50-49, and they went on a 9-0 run in the last minute of the game. And I'm still like, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it tomorrow because I'm still trying to wrap my head around how they won. They did not play well. And I know we'll talk about that more on our recap, but they they just made big plays. Aaron Reed was one of their unsung heroes, and we talked with him during the week, and this is a kid that I don't think Manchester people may not have thought he could have stepped up. I'm certain University did not know this kid was going to step up. He was shooting, I think, about 14% from three, and he hit a big three in the first half. And that was a momentum sparker. And then shout out to Wyatt Prater, who came in off the bench and knocked down a big three. But the unsung hero of the day for Manchester was Caleb Klein. Only 5 points, but man, did he knock down a big three at one point in that game. He was 1 for 1 from three, played 25 minutes. This is a kid that's played all.
Made big shots through the entire tournament, didn't he?
He did, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. 5 points for him, and congratulations to him because he won the Mental Attitude Award, and that is a prestigious award for a kid like
The big
him
deal.
who's been through the ringer and had struggled at times this year because he maybe wasn't playing as much because of his injury. And that injury, I think, may have slowed him down at times, but he stepped up when they needed him most. And then Gavin Benton and Ethan
Yeah.
Hendricks, they did what they did. And we talked about it this week. We said that if they did what they do and that they'll win the game, that's what happened. Ethan Hendricks hit two big threes. He hit a big three at the end of the third quarter, right before the buzzer. He hit a big three. And
Gavin
when that
Benton,
final,
let me real fast, Grant. 9 for
yeah,
16 from the field, made his only 3-point attempt, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a game high, co game high with Ethan Hendricks, 21 points.
And when that final buzzer went off, the first guy Gavin went to was Ethan Hendricks. It's the first two dudes to hug each other. It was so great to see them win that. And Eli Henson is joining elite company among really good coaches to win a state championship at the 2A level.
And I should also mention that Manchester shot 75% in the second half.
I did not know that.
They were 8 for 11 in the third quarter and 7 for 9 in the fourth quarter.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah,
Like, that's just not a recipe for you getting beat.
that is correct. And then there was a little bit of a break from all the emotion, and then he came back to it and had another absolute thriller. South Bend St. Joseph held off Christmas Addicts 56-52 for that program's first state championship in history, and it was Elijah King with 16 points, Nick Shrewsbury with 16 points, and Chase
Knizni.
Konezny with 10 points and 11 rebounds, and he have the biggest 2 points and one rebound of the game, or what?
Oh my gosh, that putback dunk was. I have the video. I'll send it to you. I had a really good angle of it, and it was one of the greatest putback dunks I think I've ever seen because he came in flying out of nowhere to slam that thing back in. This was with a minute to go in the game. The game
Right.
was tied. The game
Yes.
was tied, and he had that dunk to put him up 2, and then they never trailed after that. I mean, it really, when you think about it, yeah, they won by 4. They won 56-52, but that was the game-winning
It
play.
really was, yes.
That's what willed them over the top. And it wasn't, that was a big punch that they threw, but it wasn't the knockout blow, I think, because Addicts still had opportunities to win the game. But Addicts had a really good game from Desmond Briscoe, 17 points, 11 rebounds for him. This is a guy that was originally committed to Iowa that decommitted with their coaching change, and he had some D1 guys looking at him tonight. Coach DeVries from IU is there, and he played like a Division I player. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the son of a coach, Nick Shrewsbury, and we know who his dad is, right? Micah,
Yeah.
the coach of Notre Dame, and he played all 32 minutes, 16 points for him. And when they were in the state finals last year and lost to Scottsburg, I remember Nick Shrewsbury played bad, just to be blunt with you. He did not play good. And he really stepped up tonight. I think he's improved as a player. He was great. Elijah King was great with 16 points for him, 10 for Konezny, or however you say it. That's surprising to me. I felt like he had more than 10. But he flew around the floor. He was able to facilitate the offense, and then obviously had that big putback slam there at the
5
end.
offensive rebounds. That's a
Yeah,
big
and the
number.
biggest offensive rebound maybe in the 3A in the history of the 3A state championship.
Certainly in South Bend St. Joseph program history.
Oh, the biggest rebound of all time. There's no question.
No doubt.
Ever.
And Nick Shrewsbury, by the way, son of Micah Shrewsbury, who was a former coach at Jeffersonville, former resident of Jeffersonville.
Okay, wow.
And speaking of Jeffersonville, the new mayor of the town is Sharon Wilkerson. The town now has 2 state championships, and Sharon has been part of both of them, all the great teams in program history, and he's been part of both state championships.
Yeah.
The Jeffersonville Red Devils, you have to say upset, right? Upset
Oh,
Fisher
absolutely.
67-66 for the program's second state championship. The only team that had won one before that repeated a championship, and that was 30 years ago. And this one, Grant, was won because the Jeffersonville Red Devils had the best player on the floor.
They did. Sharon, man, I'm ecstatic for him. I wouldn't say I've gotten to know him, but I've met him a couple times, and just what a great guy. for this to happen to. And he coached a hell of a game.
He
Um,
is. They are very well coached, Grant.
yeah. And for him to win one as a player and then come back as a coach and win one, he absolutely stamped his ticket into a Hall of Fame induction at some point down the road tonight.
Absolutely.
And that to me was just unbelievable.
And Mayor Mike Moore should watch it out for his job because
Yeah.
if Sharon wants it, it's his now.
Well, Sharon, when that buzzer went off, man, you could see the emotion on his face.
To
He
win a state championship is amazing. To do it against a team with a 43 game winning streak, the defending champions, one of the best teams in the nation, for your alma mater, man, what a special time for Coach Wilkerson.
he's come a long way from the days of playing at Rio Grande University.
That's
I
right.
mean, he's come a long way from coaching as an assistant with Pat Knight in the NCAA tournament at Lamar. He's come a long way from that really bad season he had a few years ago when he was briefly the coach at Logan Sport. That to me is why I'm happy for Sharon, is because this is a guy that has kind of been through the ringer in his career in some aspects of just he's faced some hardships. Having to leave, he had to leave Indiana, and his playing career, he never ended up in the NBA. He was, I think, close to making the league, and just played overseas and then came back and has been through the ringer of some coaching jobs that have just not been good, like just places where it's really hard to succeed. And no disrespect to those other programs, but I mean, you look where he's coached, and that's the case. And so for him to come back to the alma mater where he won one as a player, and like you said, beating perhaps maybe one of the greatest teams of all time, one of the greatest seasons of all time, regular seasons and tournament with Fishers, is just it's an accomplishment unlike anything, unlike anything. Fishers had the lead for most of the first half, and Jeffersonville kind of made a push towards the end where
Well,
um,
Trey Singleton just took
Trey
over.
Singleton
Nothing they
took
can do.
over.
Nothing
He
they
he
can
took
do.
Yeah, he put on one of the greatest individual performances I've ever seen watching basketball, ever.
And he finished with 26 points and the assist of the game to Elijah Cheek, which ended up being the game winner.
Yeah,
Fishers had no choice but to double team Singleton, and he took advantage of it, finding a wide open Cheeks for a layup that proved to be the game winner. He finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Also, Michael Cooper, 15 points. He was a perfect 6 for 6 of the line. And you talking about a guy who's going to be famous for life in Jeffersonville, Mr. Sean Boyd. 4 for 5
yeah.
from the field, 3 for 3 from the 3 point line. 11 points came in, averaging 4 points a game, and goes away with the Mental Attitude Award. That guy is going to be famous in his hometown for the rest of his life.
It's all about the unsung heroes, isn't it? I mean,
It
he
really
he
is.
was he was the unsung hero for Jeffersonville, but give Fishers a lot of credit because they had opportunities to win it, and I thought they were going to.
I really did
But
too.
Jason Gardner Jr. had an and one to the cup where they took the lead with about a minute to go in regulation.
And I thought that was it.
I I thought the roof was going to blow off a Gainbridge. That place absolutely. That was when it got when the final buzzer went off in Jeffersonville won. That was the loudest I've ever heard that place. But when he had that and one, that place roared like unlike anything I've ever heard. And not to mention, if we haven't mentioned this, that game was won in overtime.
Oh,
And
yes. we need to
Jefferson,
mention that.
yeah, Jeffersonville. So with 4 seconds to go in regulation, had a great look to win it. They actually it worked out in their favor because Singleton was open at about half court and they threw it to him, and he was able to turn and catch and dribble it down.
Really good look.
Oh, I thought it was in. I thought there. I remember thinking it's in, and they're going to win the state championship on a floater at the buzzer. And it rolled in and out. And, man, that place, and you could see the sigh of relief over the Fishers on that Fishers sideline. But that's when I thought, oh, this is going to go to overtime, and Fishers is going to win this. I'm thinking that's a heartbreaker to because you missed a shot that rolled in and out at the buzzer that would have won you the game. They hung on and they hung in there, and just what a game and what a night for the city of Jeffersonville, man. This night's going to be talked about for the rest of time down there in that city. In my opinion, that was I don't know, because I'd have to go back and look, and I can only remember maybe back to about 10 or 11 years now of me really paying attention to high school basketball. But I can't think of an upset in the boys' state final. I can think of one of the girls because it happened this year, but I can't think of an upset in the boys' state finals, class basketball wise, as big as that one. That maybe was the biggest upset in the history of class basketball in a state championship game. David
Interesting.
certainly beat Goliath.
That's for sure. But I'd have to go back and look at that. But there's probably a bigger one because it's an awfully good Jeffersonville team. But it's been a while. That's for sure. Um,
Right, like Jeffersonville was good enough to win it, I think, coming in, but Fishers was Fishers, and we had said like
yeah.
the entire tournament, we really had no debate on when we picked when they played. All
And
throughout the time, it was no debate.
And Grant, I think if they played that 10 times, Fishers wins at 7 or 8, but it doesn't
Yeah,
matter because
they played it
Jeffersonville won
once, and
on
that was
this
that.
night.
Yep.
And Jason Gardner Jr., who's going to be a good one, 15 points. Justin Kirby, 15 points for Fishers. Um, John Anthony Hall is some kind of athlete, 9 points, 7 rebounds.
Yeah.
He'll be playing football at Stanford.
Hmm.
Cooper Zachary finished with 8 points. Man, that guy plays some defense with some tenacity, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And Nathan Baker finished with 7, hit a really big shot in the fourth quarter that looked like it might give Fishers the momentum to win that game. And Millen McCartney 6 points, as always. Very balanced Tigers team, although tonight did not work in their favor. And we mentioned Manchester shooting in the second half. Jeffersonville in the second half and overtime was 15 for 24 from the field.
Wow. And that's why they deserve to win the game. I mean, and you look at the second quarter, they outscored. This was really one of the big difference makers that they outscored Fishers 22-13 in the second quarter.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And Jeff, again, Singleton, 42 points in the paint. That was a that was a big difference in this game. And because of that, Jeffersonville shot 58.7% for the game. And you're going to win when you do that most of the time, 8 for 9 from the free throw line as well.
Absolutely.
Grant, thank you so much for your time. It's been an awfully good season, and that was an awfully good day. And you and I are going to talk about it again in more in depth coming up in the next couple of days. Appreciate your time, Grant. Really appreciate Grant staying up late on Saturday night, literally being in downtown Indianapolis from 9 a.m. till well after 9 p.m. So long day for Grant. Really appreciate his time. Congratulations to Orleans, Manchester, South Bend, St. Joseph, and to the Jeffersonville Red Devils for winning 2025 state championships. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear and would like the Central Indiana Sports Report to continue to grow and thrive, please share it with your friends and family. We thank you in advance. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Susie.